Okay, so now we're actually getting to the fun part, and that's actually working in the terminal. Now, how do we open the terminal? Well, the terminal is actually right over here. When we go over to activities, we can type in terminal over here, and that will open up our terminal. But this is not the ideal way to open up your terminal. There is something called a shortcut key, and the shortcut key for opening your terminal is Control-Alt-T. And this will actually open up our terminal, and this is basically what you will be doing when you open up the terminal. You'll basically just do Control-Alt-T, and that will open up the terminal. Now we are in the terminal here, and we can see immediately that we are working on this username, and then the @ means the computer that we're working on. So this over here, right away we can see this is our username, and then followed by the @ symbol, and then it says our computer name, right? Followed by a colon, and this is the working directory. So this is the directory we're currently working in, and followed by the $, and the $, actually stands for the shell. This is actually the sign where the shell starts. This is basically just the shell prompt, and this is where we can actually start typing commands, right? So let's see here. So what is this tilde key? So you need to know something about the tilde key, and the tilde key is the shortcut symbol to the home directory. So if we would do pwd, which means print working directory, so this will print out our working directory, we'll see that we are in the /home/Herbert folder, and this means that we are working in the home directory. So this / means our root directory, and from our root directory we are going into home, and then we're going into our user directory. So we're going to get into how the file system works later in the course, but just for now, just remember that we are working in our home directory, and the home directory is situated in the /home/username, in our case Herbert, and that the tilde key is actually a symbol that stands for this directory. So just to give you an example, we can actually change our directories as well. So we can do cd/home, for example, and this will bring us into the home directory. And you'll see that it changes over here. So in blue over here, we'll see that our directory has changed to home instead of the tilde key. And so now we can do ls, and so ls will list all of the directories in our current folder, and we can see that folder Herbert is there. And if we would do cd Herbert again, there we are again. This is our tilde key because the terminal knows that we're working in the home directory, and so it will always show this tilde key instead of the complete directory. Now we can get rid of all of this clutter, and we can do clear, and this gives us a nice clean slate. Okay, so these are your first terminal commands, but we're going to get into them a little bit later because this is just scratching the surface. So now we can actually go into the settings of our terminal. So by default, our terminal looks like this, but we can make it look a little bit different. Now, some of you guys might had a little bit of difficulty reading what I was typing in. So we're going to get into the menu over here, and we're going to go into preferences, and we're going to change a few things. Now, in general, you can change a few things over here. You can change the theme, and you can actually change the theme to a light theme or to a dark theme over here. You can choose whether you want to open the new terminals in window or in a tab, and also the new tab position can be last or next, whatever you prefer. Over here we have some shortcuts. You can have a look at these. The shortcuts will actually help you very much. Like, for example, editing stuff. You want to copy stuff, you want to paste stuff. That's all going to be very handy in the future. But we're going to be focusing on the profiles. And we have one profile called unnamed over here. I do believe that we can rename it to something else. So let's call it Herbert for in this case, because yeah, that's my name. And the first thing we can change is we're going to change some fonts. So let me drag this over here. Let's drag this over here. So we can change the fonts over here. So if we enable this, we'll see that it's immediately changed to a bigger font. And you'll see that the screen also increases in size. So the cursor, we can also change that. We can do a I-beam, which is actually more of just a straight bar, a vertical bar, or we can do an underline, which is more like an underscore. Cursor blinking, we can disable that as well so that it doesn't blink, so it just stands there. Or we can enable it and then it blinks whenever we are ready to type something. Also, we can enable sounds in the terminal by just enabling this icon over here. And over here we can change some colors. You know, this is actually the fun part, because now we can actually make our, this is actually a fun part because here we can actually make our terminal look like one of those matrix style things, right? So we can actually disable the default theme, and now we actually have this matrixy style of a terminal. And this is actually, you know, it's pretty cool to be working in a matrixy style. So we can actually start typing stuff over here. When we do PWD, we see everything in green. Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? But again, you can play around with this a little bit, tweak it to your liking. If you like the default, just leave it at default. But we're not gonna play around with it too much. We're gonna leave it at default. But if you want to follow along with the tutorial and you want to play around with your themes and things like that, so be my guest. It's really something I do personally, but we're just gonna leave it at default for this tutorial. Over here, we can also change scrolling, although you shouldn't be messing around with this too much unless you actually need it for something. Let's say you have a text file, or let's say a big log file. You can scroll up further than usual if you would just tweak these settings over here. Command and compatibility, I wouldn't touch on that too much. This is really a little bit more advanced stuff, so we're not going to be touching on that. Okay, so we're set up. We are in the terminal. We made it a little bit bigger so it's easier to read for you guys. And I would suggest we just go to our next segment and we actually start typing some commands in here.